Welcome friends to another r/idontworkherelady video. Did you know the nicest thing you could do would be to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our first story of the day is by Damien St. James. Wholesome, despite not being an employee, gave an elderly man A+ service. Today is my husband Randy's birthday. I had pre-ordered his birthday cake from the Fred Meyer Bakery. After checking in with the awesome staff of the bakery, I picked up a couple of other purchases, went through checkout, and was on my way out the door. And that's when I saw him. He was a man I'd say between 70, 80 years old. He had that slight hunch where, while still standing straight, his head was still bowed at a near permanent 45-degree angle. His hair was short, business appropriate, dress shirt, tie, belt, khakis, and dress slacks, worn with contemporary glasses. It didn't take me long to work out that this was a man whom, likely at many points in his life, worked in business, likely a manager or even a business owner. The man was crying, like soft sniffles and tears running down his face. If I've not mentioned, in the late 1980s, my mom and dad divorced and mom got a job at a nursing home. So from the time I was 5 to my mid-20s, I spent a good amount of time volunteering my time there, and eventually working in an official capacity as a dietitian/caregiver. So naturally, I feel a very good-natured urge to be helpful, or at the very least observant and mindful. Before I could utter a word, he approached me first. Through slight sobs and with a pained voice that was saturated with distress, worry, and despair, he weakly asked, "Excuse me, sir, I'm ever so sorry to bother you. I'm just so lost. I don't know where anything is. I've never been in here before, and everything's just gone so wrong today. I've been walking around for nearly an hour, and you're the first employee I've seen. Can you please help me?" I should note here, or restate for people whom followed my stories, that I'm often out and about in my high-visibility reflective safety vest, like the kind road workers or construction workers wear. Mine is virtually identical in every way to Fred Meyer vests that the trolley boys and maintenance workers wear, so I often get mistaken for an employee pretty much every single time I go in there. I wear my Gay Pride event, San Francisco 49ers baseball cap, my glasses, safety vest, short sleeve khaki shirt, and either black jeans or tan khakis with my boots. So it's not unreasonable for someone to assume I work there just on casual glance. Also, I used a trained English accent when I'm out and about, since the locals treat me better due to implicit bias. This was a genuine, earnest plea for help. I felt sad just listening to him all but beg for help. I had no intent of making his day worse by telling him I didn't work there. So I nodded to him. "Sir, I'd be more than happy to help. I'm so very sorry nobody got to you earlier. I'm fairly sure you only had the misfortune of walking past people and you just not seeing one another. Regardless, how can I help?" The kind old man said that the first thing he wanted was a new pair of men's pajamas. He said that his old pair got ruined that morning and he needed a new pair before bed. I told him rather than just tell him where they were, I'd push my chair right to them and he only need but follow me. So I led him to the section full of flannels, bathrobes, PJs, and all that jazz. Curiously, he asked me my advice on what I think was more comfortable. I advised the flannels since it was/is the Pacific Northwest and winter was on its way. He agreed. He thanked me, then asked if I could show him where the flashlight light bulbs were. Fortunately, I did know just where they were. I told him that we could kill two birds with one stone. He seemed to have difficulty walking, and I'm in a wheelchair, so if he pushed my chair and used his handholds, he'd effectively have the use of a walker, and I get pushed where we need to go. He seemed to cheer up and said that's the kind of thinking that would have gone far in his old business. I guide him and chat with him all the way to the home/garden section. I listen to every little thing he has to say. I react and comment when appropriate. He seemed to cheer up and open up to me. Unbeknownst to me, we were being followed. This becomes important not too long from now. So when we get to the bulbs, he describes his flashlight to me. Believe it or not, I knew just the flashlight he had. It was those silver metal kinds very often used by theater ushers that kind of resemble a lightsaber from Star Wars. I asked when it was made, and he told me they bought it back in 1965. I grimaced and explained that most of these bulbs, while they'd fit, wouldn't necessarily be compatible. I recommended an inexpensive but very powerful flashlight my husband uses for his security guard job. I have to admit, I was only briefly afraid about revealing my sexuality to the man, but saying husband is so common for me to say, I didn't think about it. Then I remembered, duh, I have a pride flag on my hat. Then the man asked about how long I'd been married, and we made small talk about that as another sales rep got the flashlight out of the case. The man and I roll/walk, as it were, to the checkout aisle. Owen, the observant checkout guy from my previous story, came over to handle much of the physical part of the ring-up. He cashes out, and then we're back to where we started. The man breaks down and cries again, which honestly started to make me cry a little. I asked what was wrong. He told me he knew I was probably off work and on my way out the door. He saw the birthday cake and heard me mention my husband. He did the mental math long before and figured I was there to pick up my husband's cake and was leaving when he stopped me. He said he felt bad that he made me help him when I clearly had somewhere to be. And this is where I did shed some tears. I'm real empathetic. I said, my husband would be more upset at me if I saw a person whom was genuinely in need and just rolled on without a care. He'll understand and won't be mad at all. It's basic human decency, sir, the absolute right thing to do. And helping a person out by giving them kindness is never an imposition on me. The man held out his hand and I shook it. Briefly, he cupped his second hand on mine and sobbed out a thank you. He said, God bless me and may my husband's birthday be a blessed one as well. I wiped my tears from my own eyes and said I hoped everything got better. With that, the man began the slow task of walking out the exit. That was when I became aware of people standing around me. I turned around and there were 4 female employees that I knew and knew me. The oldest of the group, let's call her Marge, approaches. Marge tells me she knows I don't work there, but for me to do that was the kindest act of selflessness she'd seen in ages. The younger woman agreed. I thanked them and reaffirmed what I said. I told them about working with the elderly, dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, and so forth. It's just decency, good manners, and part of what we should all do. They asked if they could hug me, respecting social distancing in my space, given what happened too recently where a Karen grabbed my chair without permission. I accepted and they all gave me hugs. Marge asked if I'm looking for a job. I blinked and said I'd not considered it due to my condition of being in a wheelchair 90% of my day. Marge said that if I ever wanted to apply and she was still working there, she'd give me the best recommendation she could. The other 3 girls agreed. I in turn thanked them, checked my watch and realized I was indeed quite late. I said my farewells, put my stuff in the car, and drove home. So, if you guys found yourself in that situation where there was an older guy clearly frustrated, even shedding a few tears over the frustration of just not knowing where anything is and not getting any help, would you be willing to drop everything you're doing to go and help this guy shop? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by MET. Yes, I'm Chinese, but that doesn't mean I work here. So for some background, Annie is a friend of mine whom I met in college. We share classes together. She moved here from China not too long ago, and this story takes place about 6 months after she moved. I say moved, but she's here on a temporary student green card. She's incredibly smart, hardworking, and witty. Just a few of the many things I love about her. She's also a ridiculously good cook and oftentimes makes me some delicious traditional Chinese recipes. Well, while there's many things she loves about the United States, one of her biggest pet peeves is our food industry. Too much grease and not enough actual food, which is why she doesn't usually eat out. Her greatest pet peeve of all is American Chinese food. They say it should be illegal, which I agree with. I've gotten food poisoning from Chinese takeout more times than I can count. Well, in our area, there's this really cute authentic Chinese restaurant. The restaurant owner immigrated from China in the late 80s with his family and brought with him all of his recipes that have been in his family for years. The restaurant's very popular in our community, and he's doing very good for himself and his family. He's also super friendly and loves to chat with his customers, whom are mostly Chinese immigrants like himself. Annie loves the place because it reminds her of home, and it tastes like real food we have back at home. Well, one afternoon, Annie and another friend of hers, Liv, decided to treat themselves and eat out. And on this particular afternoon, the restaurant was more busy than usual. It's a small place, so not a lot of seating options when it's a full house. One of the waiters asked her if she and her friend wouldn't mind splitting one of the big round tables with a family, mother, father, and their 2 teenage daughters. They agreed because it was a school night and the waiting time was long. didn't want to stay out later than they had to. While the waiter was showing them to their table, he was called away but told Annie and Liv to continue and seat themselves. They'd been there quite often and could easily find their way. The table was also big and was the first one you saw when you walked in, so it wasn't really a hassle. Now, for a bit more detail, Annie was wearing black, which were employee colors, but she clearly wasn't wearing a waitressing outfit. She was wearing a cute black sundress, while her friend Liv, who's American by the way, was wearing some fancy burgundy trousers and a matching top. Both of them were clearly not employees. When they both arrived at the table and took a seat, the mom, before either of them could explain the situation, exclaimed, "Finally, we've been waiting a while to give our orders, but our stupid waiter's been too busy running around. I swear he's doing it on purpose." Caught off guard and a bit shocked, both Annie and Liv just kinda stared at the woman, then each other. I'm afraid I don't, They get cut off with a reply of, "We're ready to order now." I've also never heard of a waiter sitting down to take orders. It comes across very disrespectful. Annie looked at the woman even more confused, and she and one of the daughters spoke at the same time. "Mom, I don't think she works here." Annie says, "Ma'am, I don't work here." She says, "Nonsense, look at her outfit. Are you going to take our order or what? Do you not speak English? Do I need to speak Chinese?" Annie says, and the mother replies with very offensive Chinese mimicry, following up with, "Get your paper out and take our order." "Honey," the husband bravely tried to intervene, "please stop, she clearly doesn't work here." The mom says, "Of course she does. She's Chinese, isn't she? And she's wearing black. Take our order." The woman sitting to the right of Liv, who was sitting between her and Annie, reaches over her and snaps twice in Annie's face. "Don't make me repeat myself, I'll get the owner involved." The snapping is what threw Annie over the edge. She kind of aggressively slaps the woman's hand out of her face. She continued her snapping and said, "Just because I'm Chinese doesn't mean I work here. My friend and I are here to eat, and don't ever do that fake crap to anyone you may suspect is Chinese again. It's extremely offensive." The mother says, "Excuse me? Who do you think you are? That is assault and I'll get you fired, or worse, arrested. Now leave before I call the cops and tell the owner I'd like a word with him. I'm sure he'd love to know that one of his employees assaulted a customer." "Hey crazy, my friend doesn't work here." Liv and Annie shared another look, one that clearly read, "This chick crazy for some hands." "Yeah, Mom, she doesn't work here." "All of you shut it. You..." The woman points a stern finger at Annie as if she's about to ground her for life. "Get out of my sight and get the freaking owner or manager. I don't care who at this point, just get someone and leave." "Again, ma'am, I don't work here." As Annie says this, Liv gets up to find the waiter and explain the situation. When she arrives back with said waiter, it's to the scene of the woman standing up leaning over Annie while loudly spitting racial slurs at her. The waiter says, Excuse me, ma'am, what seems to be the problem?" The question was directed at Annie, but Crazy Mom interrupts saying, "She refused to take our order, assaulted me, and has treated me and my family very disrespectfully. I would like to have a word with the owner." At this point, the woman's husband and two daughters look extremely embarrassed and have some variation of their hand on their face looking anywhere but up. The waiter very calmly looks between the woman and Annie and says, "Ma'am, if you couldn't tell, she doesn't work here. She's a customer and I asked her to split this table with you as we don't have enough seating space at the moment." She says, "Don't play games with me, boy. I know for a fact that she does indeed work here." "No, I can assure you she doesn't. I know all my employees. She is indeed not one of them." During Crazy Woman's rant, she failed to notice that the owner had strolled over to investigate all the commotion. Before she can say anything back, the owner has a conversation with Annie in Chinese where the situation is explained. The woman finally realizes her mistake and turns pale white trying to explain herself, stammering along the way. Well, you see, I could have sworn." The rest of the table explains what had happened, and without missing a beat, the owner kindly tells the woman and her family that they must leave. Annie and Liv were moved to a more private table, and they got a free meal that night. They continue to eat there to this day. I've even been myself. The woman, as far as Annie knows, hasn't shown up since. I don't know what it is about these cultural restaurants, but over all the time I've read these stories, there's like 50 to 100 that pop up where, because you match the ethnicity of the cuisine that's being served at the store, they somehow get automatically confused as an employee because the food and the person match, it must be, right? Karen logic can astound me sometimes. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.